Welcome to ProSBC on Azure, a tutorial, our 21st monthly webinar in the FreeSBC ProSBC series, covering technical, business, and partner topics to help service providers and enterprises better secure their voice networks. This month, we're focused on Microsoft's Azure Cloud Compute Platform, providing a step-by-step demonstration showing how to instantiate ProSBC on Azure. As more communications and collaboration applications move to the cloud, Microsoft's Azure is gaining popularity with cloud architects. And our goal for this session is to give you the knowledge needed to successfully deploy ProSBC on Azure and avoid common missteps. We'll also take a peek at the ProSBC on Azure roadmap, sharing some things we're working on for the future. So let's get started. Well, first, a couple of introductions. I'm Alan Percy. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Telcobridges and your host and moderator for today's session. Joining me is Luke Morissette. He's our Director of Technical Support and one of the Telcobridges founders. And Luke, thanks again for sharing your expertise today.
Hello and good day to all.
Okay, so let's just quick go over the agenda for today's session. We were going to cover just obviously the introductions we just covered. We've got a couple more to do, and then we're going to move on and talk about why Azure. There's a couple of trends in the industry we want to share with you. And then we're going to move on to the implementation steps. And of course, with that, a tutorial on how to do the installation and instantiation. And then we'll, as we discussed, wrap up with a ProSBC on Azure roadmap, tell you about a few things that we've got cooking for the future. And of course, we'll wrap up with Q&A and discussion. So lots to cover and hoping to squeeze this in 35, 40 minutes. So let's get going. All right, so on looking through the registration list, we do have some new people joined us here that are quite a few new people, as a matter of fact. And I want to just quick introduce Telcobridges. Obviously a manufacturer of VoIP media gateways and telecom solution platforms and session border controllers, signaling gateways, media gateways, a lot of those kinds of platforms. Company's privately held, founded in 2002. Roughly, I think we're up to 40 employees at this point. Headquartered just outside Montreal, and you can see a picture of the office there with some of the key staff. And all the development's done there in the headquarters, while we have sales and support offices in Poland, Turkey, and Hong Kong. And of course, I'm based outside Buffalo, New York. And of course, we offer 24/7 technical support around the globe, and that's part of the offering we'll be talking about today. All right, enough about us. Let's talk about the market for a moment. You know, we talked to the folks at Exact Ventures a couple of years ago, and they shared with us this slide, which is a forecast on what they saw in the session border controller marketplace. And one of the things that we picked up on was their expectation that the market is going to shift as we go forward from physical devices like session border controllers to virtualized, and of course to cloud. And we are, based on what we track, our downloads and our the versions of our FreeSBC and ProSBC software, we are tracking right along on this. We are seeing a massive shift to the cloud, and we're getting design wins every day that are either virtualized or cloud win, shifting over from bare metal and physical implementation. So we're definitely seeing this trend, and our expectation lines up exactly with what Exact Ventures was seeing. At the same time, we're looking at the the cloud platform, infrastructure platform, and clearly we saw Amazon as a leader. I think everyone is well recognized that Amazon has been a dominant player in the cloud compute platform. And we've seen a significant shift of our business to the Amazon platform. We've got a number of new design wins. In fact, I think the last 3 case studies were Amazon-based. So we're definitely seeing that shift happen. But, tracking closely behind is Microsoft, and we're seeing more and more requests from our partners for Microsoft. There are many other platforms that people pop up. We ask about Google or Alibaba. Cloud platforms that pop up. Some of them are KVM based, which can leverage our KVM edition of our software, but we are seeing strong interest in Microsoft, and Microsoft, of course, is a very unique and different environment. So thus today's session on Azure as we want to address that market need. So we want to just talk briefly about what are we going to cover today and what other resources are available. First of all, implementing either FreeSBC or ProSBC really falls down into 3 steps. The first step is the instantiation, basically getting it on a piece of hardware, whether it be in the cloud or virtualized environment or a bare piece of metal, is actually instantiating it. The second step is doing the actual configuration and how to manage the software once it's up and running. And then the third step is monitoring, diagnosing, troubleshooting, these kinds of things. Today, we're just going to talk about the instantiation of ProSBC on Azure. These other topics we've covered at length in our YouTube and Wiki libraries. How to configure, how to set up SIP trunking, how to set up routing tables. These kinds of things evolve and are well documented. So we're going to narrow the scope for today just down to the instantiation. And when we wrap up, at that point, it'll be a dovetail over to some other content we've already covered as we go along. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. And also, too, we want to talk about one of the unique things about Azure and all the cloud platforms is that there's usually a couple different ways to deploy your software in a cloud environment. One of the ways is with a virtual machine image. And this is a little bit more work, a couple more steps. It gives much greater control over how things get set up. One of the big benefits is to let you choose specifically which version of software you'd like to use. And it's very easy to replicate. In other words, once you get this environment set up, if you want to set up another VM, it's very easy to just replicate the, kind of your standard bearer template and be able to create another VM image as you go along. All the platforms, including Azure, also have the marketplace concept, which is where it's they simplify the installation process with much fewer steps. However, because of the marketplace validation process, we'll be only publishing major releases on the marketplace. And our hope today was to show you both of these. A combination of issues popped up that have prevented us from showing you the marketplace, but as we go through the VM image process, we'll point out exactly where the marketplace would pick up if you were to, when and if we finish the marketplace publication as we go along. So today we're going to cover this left-hand column, the VM image instantiation, and the more detailed process. So what all is involved for the VM image? There's a handful of steps here, and I'm just going to cover them real quick. And then Luke, when he gets into the demo, will be stepping through this whole process as we go. We're going to start out with assuming that you would have gone to our ProSBC pricing page at prosbc.com/pricing, and you would have purchased a ProSBC license. And one point of clarification is our Azure implementation is only supported on ProSBC. We do not have a FreeSBC edition for Azure. Once you have your license, then you would download the ProSBC VM, the virtual machine image. Then you're going to create an Azure storage space, upload that image onto the Azure space, and from there, then you're going to create a virtual network, a virtual machine, and then you're going to instantiate the software and add some security rules. What's nice about this is that at the end of all this process, to create another VM, you just have to repeat these last 3 steps, which is basically create another VM, instantiate ProSBC, and add security rules. So multiple VMs are very easy in this environment. Over in the marketplace, again, you would go and acquire a license, go through the process of creating a virtual network. You select ProSBC from the marketplace, and then, of course, instantiate it and add the security rules. So a little bit simpler over the marketplace, but again, certainly nothing you folks can't handle. All right, so Luke, let's just talk a little bit about some of the VM machine sizes and requirements. We've done some validation testing here. Maybe you could decode what this whole table means, and then we can move on to the live demo.
Yeah, well, these are instance types or VM size, as they call it here for Azure. They have different names. We see on other cloud platforms they have different names, but the main thing is to know how many CPUs are available, RAM, and also for the SBC, what is important is that the advanced networking features can be added on those VMs, right? And then you have the size. So that's what makes the difference between the VM size is how many concurrent sessions you can have on such VM size. Of course, they are more expensive, so you need to target exactly what is your number of sessions you plan to use on the SBCs.
Right, and of course those are SBC sessions, full duplex, bidirectional voice RTP sessions on these various VMs. Right.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to let go and let you, Luke, take over, and let's get to the live demo. So I'll just let you take over from here.
Yes. Share the screen. Can you see my screen?
I do.
Is this the?
It's your TB Wiki page.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. So what these instructions that I will show you now are from the wiki pages. So you can go here to docs.telcobridges.com, and then on this main page, you click here on installing, and then you have the various types of systems we support, and you have the Azure installation instructions, which are the last one in the list here. And this is what Alan just showed, and we have in the list here everything that needs to be done. Some of these steps don't need to be repeated for the second one you will create. Okay, so I will follow these instructions here with you with the Azure portal. All right, so first thing is to, of course, create an account on Azure. All right, so your account just needs to be created. Here you see my account name is a pretty big name because I was having trouble creating an account name that was not already created by someone else in the world. Then we can access this portal, right? So portal.azure.com, and then you get a dashboard. You can customize your dashboard here to have access to what you need. You see all kinds of stuff that has been deployed by my team here in Montreal and around the world. Okay, so then first thing we want to do is create a resource group. Right? So most of the options are available here on the menu here. So you can go here, select resource groups. Okay. From here, you can do add a resource group. You get to this page here, and then you need to input the resource group name you want to use. And I have used for my example, AZ Webinar Group. All right. Then you need to choose the region. In my case, I'm going to be in Canada Central. Okay, every time you do something, you can always review this, what you have selected, make sure it's good, and then you can select on create. All right.
So far, so good.
Next thing, yep, exactly. Next thing we can do the storage account. So again, here I can go on the left side, click storage account. You can do add storage account. Here you need to use the resource group we have created. Of course, I pre-created those groups, so I don't have to wait here for the Azure to create them for me. So then I can create here as a storage group. You can choose your region. Here I choose Canada. The rest of these options right now are not important. They can be tuned later when we create the images. So again, here you can do review and create, make sure everything is done correctly, and create your storage group. In that storage group, the next step is to create a container inside the storage group. So if we go back to your storage account and then select your webinar storage we just created. Okay, you can either search here for container, or you also have it sometimes in some of these tabs here. In the containers, you will want to create here a new container. And then the container name, I've selected AZ Webinar Container. And then you can select OK here to create this container. This allows us to upload a image to that container. All right. So to upload this image, you have to go back to storage accounts. You select the container that was created just before, okay? The AZ webinar container. Okay, next you need to upload your file. So here you have a menu that you can use to upload a file. So the file that was downloaded from our, when you ordered the ProSBC, looks like this, right? So it's a FreeSBC Azure vhd.tar.gz. This is the same image for ProSBC, right? We use exactly the same source file. So you need to unzip it and untar it. Okay, so I use the tool 7-zip to do that, but there's of course other tools that exist. And this brings you to a VHD file. You see, maybe this VHD file is pretty large, and Azure forces us to do such a thing. So you have to use this 40 gigabyte file and upload it. Okay. So here I've already uploaded it, so that's why it tells me it already exists. So I just created here, did upload, and it got my file here on Azure. All right, is that clear for everyone?
And they don't have to keep that file laying around though. Once that's done, the 41 gig, they can, once it's uploaded, they can get rid of it, right?
Well, you will need it every time you want to create a new image. So,
Yeah.
so you can keep it there as long as you need it. Okay. Then we can create our virtual network. Okay, so virtual network here. So we go, whoops, we can go here on this side, virtual networks. Okay, again, here we say add a virtual network. The name of my virtual network. Okay. The address space here, this is useful for creating many systems in the same virtual address space, right? So they can interface with each other through a semi-private network, right? So you can choose which address space you want here. Then your subscription, resource group, you have to choose the one that we've created. So AZ Webinar Group, our location, our subnet here, well, we make our system on the same subnet, but you see the range is smaller than the address space that we had before. And then you can do here create your virtual network. Okay. Next step is to create your image, your virtual machine image. So you go here at the top left to create a resource. You get to a page like this where maybe you have those options somewhere, but if you don't have them, you can do here, just type search image. And that's what we want to do here, create an image. Okay, so you provide here your image name. I've been using this one, maybe it's gonna complain or not. Okay, good. And then my resource group, again, you have to specify your group. As you saw, I have here many groups for different types of systems, or maybe one is in Asia and stuff like that. So you have to use the right one here. Location, again, I'm staying in Canada. Okay. Other options here for now, well, here you have to choose Linux and choose your storage blob. So here I have my webinar storage we created before. I have my container also we created before. And this is my Azure image. All right, so then my storage blob will point to this image we uploaded before. Again, here we don't need to set those options right now. We can do that when we instantiate the ProSBC. All right, so now our image is set, and we need to instantiate the virtual machine. Okay, so virtual machines here. Again, here we want to do add a virtual machine. So again, we here will choose our resource group, our virtual machine name, so sometimes it complains, it will check if it's Linux, so we can use this name instead. Yeah, so I already used this name, so let's put this. Okay, so now it accepts my my virtual machine name. Here I can go to Canada, whoops, Canada Central. That's where I will be deploying this instance. The image here, you have to go to My Items and get the image we created before. Okay, so yeah, so it's just too long. Okay, very good. Then here you can do your administrator account. So you have two choices, either, well, this one only allows you to do, sometimes you can do it with a key. So we can do something like this, and then set a password for accessing your machine using SSH. Okay. The rules right now, we don't need to set them. We can set them later. Okay. Next, instead of doing review and create here, we'll choose the disks. This is where we'll choose to use our premium SSD, just a bit more efficient, not necessarily a hard requirement, but it's good to have those. If you can afford it, it's a good idea. Next thing is the networking. Okay, so here, well, I already have my my network. This is what we created earlier on. The subnet here, you have to choose the subnet you want to have your instance in. Public IP, all right, here we ask to create a new one. Then public inbound ports here, we suggest to put none, because since the SBC already has its own protection from external systems, its own firewall, so we don't need to allow specific ports. You can, however, configure those if you want. Okay. Then it's here, review and create, so you can review everything that was done before creating this this image. All right, so you can review all the options we have selected. Okay. Once it's done, you can add those security rules in addition to what we have done. But right now, I will not show this because it's not always necessary. The last part is using the Azure CLI to configure accelerated networking on the on this instance. Okay, so you can go to the documentation of Microsoft, and you can install the Azure CLI. So you can install this for Windows or Mac, depending on what you're using. So I went ahead and then did this already. And then I opened a Windows PowerShell to log into Azure. So these instructions are on our wiki also, how to do this. So you can do AZ login. This gets me to the web interface. I need to log into my Azure account. And you wait a few seconds. Okay. Here I can go back to my PowerShell. And what we need to do then is to allocate accelerated networking. So there's some commands to do this. The command is this one for my SBC. And you can see this is the show command, so I can see it's set to false. And then I want to use this command to set it to true. And maybe it's not gonna work. Yeah, okay, so I need to change something else. But this is the command to do. Okay. And the last one is to, okay, so after we have set this accelerated networking, we need to stop the virtual machine. So if I go to my ProSBC webinar, you need to stop it, and then you need to restart it. That's the only way you will recreate the accelerated networking. Then if you go here, you can see also your public IP address, and this is how you will access this. So you will have the public IP address here and the port. Once you access this, sorry, you will get to the initial configuration of the wizard. Right now it says here free SBC because it doesn't know that you have a license yet. Once you've continued on this, then it will ask you for a ProSBC key and the license. And that's it.
Well, that wasn't too bad. That was,
You
I
think
know
so?
you had a few things pre-baked, but
yes, of course.
yeah, and of course, like we talked about, there's a few steps up front are just really allocating storage, the blob, loading the VM image. A lot of that is just, it's one time, right? It's
Yes,
you have to go through the process
absolutely.
once. And at that point, when you were instantiating new VMs, then it's just a matter of, that is just a repeat process that happens to instantiate. And the other thing I wanted to point out too, there was a spot there where you're getting ready to instantiate, and you went to your image, and that's where the marketplace showed up. And when we get the marketplace listing set up, you'd just be able to type ProSBC in that search window.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and it'll show up then in the marketplace, and it'll save some of that process of having to set up the storage ahead of time. So that'll make things a little bit easier. But again, we're only going to put major releases on the marketplace and minor releases to get them from there. So okay, so let me take over here again. I'm just going to grab your screen. So let's see. So yes. Anyway, so you achieved getting ProSBC set up on Azure at this point, and you now have that configuration wizard on your screen. And at that point, like I said, you can pick up in one of our other tutorials or the other webinars that we've recorded to go through the actual configuration process. Setting up the network access points and the the routing and rest of the elements that are part of the platform. So lots of other materials to go for that. Okay, so what's next then is talking about the roadmap. So a couple things on the roadmap that we wanted to share today. One of them is, as we mentioned, the Azure Marketplace. We'll be offering both a trial and a bring your own license edition of the software. And as Luke said, you would need to go in to download your key to activate ProSBC software with the bring your own license. That's how that's implemented. And of course, you get that license from the prosbc.com/pricing page, and going through that process, the purchase process. We got a couple other things on the roadmap too. Is for anchored RTP, we want to improve the performance of that. There's definitely some room for improvement. It's part of that, advanced networking. We're still trying to wring out some of the scaling issues. If you know ProSBC, on bare metal, we can get upwards of 60,000 sessions. While we know there's some overhead involved with some of the cloud platforms, we should be doing better than that. But for a lot of the enterprise and some of the getting started applications, as you saw, we can do upwards of a few thousand today, and we want to continue to improve that. And we have that planned for work in the first half of 2020. After that is we do get some requests for 1+1 high availability on the cloud platforms. There's some custom work we have to do for Azure to get that done, and we hope to have that done by the second half of 2020 comes to a close. So we'll be working on that. So a couple of things on the roadmap to continue to chop away at that as we go forward. Again, kind of replicating some of what we've done in the Amazon environment. All right, so that brings us to the end of a couple of just things to wrap up. We've talked a lot about where FreeSBC and ProSBC resources are. You can find them all on prosbc.com or freesbc.com. A lot of the questions that people have asked in past, the past 21 webinars are on the forums at forums.freesbc.com. That's a great place to go to learn all kinds of little details and tidbits about the platform. And of course, the content that we discussed is all on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Telcobridges, and we obviously encourage you to subscribe to that. Whenever we publish new content, you'll get notified, and that'll help you stay abreast of not only the current stuff, but new things that come along as we go. So let's go to the Q&A panel. There's a couple things here in the Q&A panel to get you ready for this. All right, so Herbert asked, it may be a question for Microsoft, but I'll ask. What is a container and what is a storage group, and why the layering of containers and groups? That's a good question. It's kind of a architectural thing. So I don't know, Luke, you want to take a stab at that?
Well, the answer is I don't really know why, but what I've seen is on other cloud platforms also they do similar things like Ali Cloud and other I've seen them. I think it's probably something on their side to allow regrouping resources in different regions and stuff like that. So, but really, I think you are right that we should ask Microsoft about that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, I've seen the same thing on the other platforms. So there's the concept of like storage containers. I think that some of that might be permissions. It lets you finally define permissions of what can get at what. So okay, all right. James asks, why did the command line setup fail, and what happened there? So I don't know if you
yeah. Can you let me share the screen again?
Sure.
Alan?
Yeah. Sure.
Share my screen. This one here. Yeah, I've looked at the error while Alan was talking, and I see here it says my size here, standard D2 SV3 that we see up here as well, right? It says that it's not compatible, but I know it is. So maybe it's in the Canada region. It's not allowed, and it's the first time I try in the Canada region. So maybe that. But however, we could just recreate it with a D3 or a D12 systems, and that would also work, right? And here I have a command, for example, on a system that my colleague Serdar, whoops, where is it? Copy. Right, so you can do something like this, and then this time the command works, right? And if you do show accelerated, you will see that it's set to true. So so I think I just need to change my instance type. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll just leave that up there for now. So Peter asks, is the HA will go across Azure availability zones? Good question. I don't know. We'll have to look. I have to look at the statement of work for that effort, and let's see where we go with that. So that maybe is a good suggestion. So we'll dig into that. Okay, so Peter asks a question, is ProSBC being sold as an enterprise access or interconnect SBC? And I think the answer to that is yes, yes, and yes. We've seen it used in all kinds of different situations. We've seen it as an enterprise SBC. However, its design is mostly as a service provider SBC. So we do see it in access and for peering. Those are the two primary use cases, but we have seen it being used as an enterprise SBC, kind of secondarily. It's fit in all kinds of scenarios and situations. So I don't know, Luke, anything you want to add to that?
No, actually, you're right. I've seen it used everywhere. So
Yep.
I think we just have to look at the feature set that is required in your installation, and then we can say if it's good or not for this installation.
Yep. Yep. Matter of fact, one thing I would point you to is on the ProSBC.com website, there is a use case menu choice. And whenever someone comes up with a new interesting use case, we throw it up there. And there's lots of different suggested use cases there. That might be a good place.
Yeah, SBC use cases here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, and that's the instructions on how to install them and use them in that configuration. We also have them on the ProSBC.com, just high level architecturally have them listed there. Okay, so James asked a question: is there advantages to Azure over Amazon? So I know, Luke, I know you've mostly been focused on the technical side. I can tell you what I hear from people from a business side, but we'll start with technical. Anything that you've run across from a technical perspective that's a little different?
It's, to me, it looks just a bit more difficult on Azure technical side, but I think the end result will be the same, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just a question of choice. Once you've chosen one type of platform, just stay with it. Don't try to change, because it's it's just different.
Right. Right. And I would say, just from my poking around in it too, it's like it's maybe someone started with a clean slate with Azure, and obviously they came to market a little bit later than Amazon, and therefore I think it maybe was more thought through. Maybe is probably the right way to put it. But again, it's a relatively minor than Amazon. I mean, certainly plenty of people have figured out Amazon and got it working, and Azure is similarly, simple / complex, depending on what you use. From a business standpoint, I know this. Obviously, you need to pay attention to pricing. And one of the areas that people get snagged on, by the way, and we've learned this from our AWS instantiations and customers, is on the media passing through the SBC. Some of our customers want the media to go through the SBC and, of course, go through the cloud platform, and they have to plan for the data bandwidth usage. And obviously, with VoIP calls, there's a lot of data bandwidth. There's a lot of traffic, especially when you get up in hundreds and thousands of sessions simultaneously. There's a lot of data, and that ends up costing them quite a bit of money. So thus, we added the media bypass feature, which is predominantly what's being used in cloud deployments. Most people don't send the media through the SBC. They just send the session control, the SIP messages through the SBC to be able to manage that. So maybe being careful to compare those two, the pricing models from those two for the amount of data bandwidth that's going through. All right, so a couple more questions here. So Melcon asked a question: is there a list of working enterprise soft switches, IPPBXs? And there is, and it's actually our Alliance Partner Program listing. If you go to our ProSBC.com page here, actually, let me just take over sharing here for a quick second so I can navigate here. Let me just do that. Let me go to here. And let me just get my browser back here. And let's go to oops, I had it open here. If you go to the our partner page here, this is where we list whenever we do a validation with a partner, whether it be software, hardware, whatever, we list it here. All different categories. We have, routing, soft switch, education partners, hosting, and once we finish the validation, we list them here. So I know it's a pretty long list, but these are all some of the platforms that have gone through and done validation with ProSBC, and of course we refer to that. And then on top of it all, on the wiki, it's worth searching if there's a particular platform. The wiki has a lot of that covered too. Okay. All right. Well, and James says thanks for the time today. Well, no, thank you, James, for your time. I appreciate you and other participants for joining us here today. And with that, we're going to wrap things up. Looks like we're at the end of the questions here, so I'm just going to quick remind everybody, if you found this useful, you're going to get a copy of the not only the slides, but the recording. Do feel free to pass it along. We've got lots of other content on the YouTube channel. I definitely, again, encourage you to go ahead and register or subscribe and click on the bell. Make sure you get notified when new content gets posted there. And Luke, I want to wrap up with saying thanks for sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
And that's it from here. Wishing you all a good day. Thanks for listening. I hope you found this content useful. And don't forget to share this with any other your coworkers or others who might be interested. Also, don't forget to click on subscribe, and there's links below.